the bottom. Unfortunately, we didn't go forward with that agenda for a variety of reasons.
Elaine Brown, tell us, why did you leave the Black Panther Party? Because of male chauvinism? Because they didn't let you do what you really thought? Because Huey Newton, he was not the man you met years before he went to exile in Cuba. Why?
Well, all of that.
Okay.
There was a woman who was beaten up, but
Yeah.
that was one thing. That was sort of the last straw. I think that Huey, who was the greatest visionary that the party had, and really a genius, in my opinion. I loved Huey then when I left. I love him now, all these years afterward. And I respect him. But he lost the vision somewhere along the way, or he got tired. There was a phrase that a woman popularized named Ayn Rand called Atlas Shrugged, and it was kind of that. He was tired, and so he didn't care anymore. He was tired of being the hero that had to deliver all the time. And it is exhausting to be a hero and have people depend on you to leap tall buildings in a single bound. And so in losing that vision, Huey sort of didn't care about what we had accomplished, even though it was his vision and his direction that I was following. And it reached a kind of apex when he sort of shrugged his shoulders over a woman who was beaten up by men in the Black Panther Party, which was intolerable. And when I confronted him with it, he said, "What is this to do with you? Nobody's going to put hands on you."
I will protect you.
Not even protect me, it just wasn't going to happen. And I thought, what do you mean it has nothing to do with me? It has everything to do with me. This woman was the backbone of our school and so forth. So it wasn't just the question of, quote, chauvinism, because black men, while they may want to be patriarchs and chauvinists, they don't have any money or power. And it's very hard to be in charge of somebody when you don't have any power. In fact, you may want to have power. But it was that we had really lost everything, and that everything was in front of us, and he couldn't see it. Everything was behind us, all the bloodshed, all the deaths, all the people in prison. We were moving in the direction that he meant to move in. We had cleared the streets. There was not a thug or a cop in the street that was going to challenge the Black Panther Party. Can you believe that? We were headed toward controlling at least the machinery of the Port of Oakland, second largest port in the world, biggest trading partner to China, to Korea, so forth and so on. And you want to be a thug all of a sudden. You want to go backwards to some other era. And I saw that it was out of my control, and I didn't have control over it, and I left. I saw Huey after that, and he said, "You could have kissed me goodbye." I said I didn't think it was a good idea at the time. But I loved him, and I still do, because I loved the vision that we had, and I still believe in it.
Hi ha una conversa, I'm going to tell them the conversation between you and he at some point when you said, but you are the party, making him conscious that he was the leader. Hi ha una conversa, perquè a més aquest llibre té la virtut que ella recorda totes les converses que ha tingut amb tots aquests. Ja veieu que té una memòria brutal, però és que el llibre recull converses molt bèsties d'aquesta etapa, no? I una de les converses, quan ella el confronta... I'm going back to you, but I'm telling them about it.
That's quite right.
Una aquesta conversa en què ella el confronta, i és molt interessant des del punt de vista del lideratge polític, perquè ella li diu, escolta, però tu ets conscient que tens el partit i que el partit està fent tota aquesta feina i que no els pots deixar? I ell diu, jo només vull ser jo mateix. He's telling you in this conversation, he wants to be himself. You are telling him, confronting him, saying, you are the party. You don't realize what you are left behind. And he's telling you, I want to be heard. I don't want to be the party. I mean, the leadership that he has still, he doesn't want it anymore. And he's incapable of building up something else to carry on. That's the thing. He is incapable of giving the leadership to someone else. That's the point. That's why everything is dies at the end.
He had said when he got back that we would be in leadership together. And for several months, that was true. And then there was this sense of, I don't really want to be bothered with this. And so when this one woman was beaten up, I said, well, how did that happen? I didn't authorize it. How did it happen? If I didn't authorize it, it's not supposed to happen. And he said, the men came to me. I said, they came to you and you gave her to them? And that's when he said, what does it matter to you? I said, well, it matters because I didn't authorize it. And if you did, that means that you're telling me what to do. And that's really why I left. I wasn't going to be told what to do anymore because I knew that we had the correct vision. And I knew that if he would just stay in that house we bought him and act like Mao Zedong and write a statement every 2 years or so, we'd be all right. But he had to get engaged in this mundane stuff. And these little men who had their little problems with the women in leadership and appealed to him in the aftermath. And there you were. So there was nothing else to say.
Elaine, tell us about this revolution that you aimed in 1968 when you joined the party. What have you learned from that? What was not worth doing? What was worth doing? Do you think that we can do a change the system like you wanted, capitalism and everything differently from what you tried?
Well, the strategies all depend on the conditions, but I certainly believe that we have to create a world in which no one is oppressed or exploited. A world in which all human beings have the things that we want, that we need, and maybe even the things that we want that are available within our framework, and that we can really become a part of the universe in a real and meaningful way. But we can't get there if in a system that is already inherently exploitative. So you can be anti-capitalist or not anti-capitalist, but in the end of the day, we have to talk about exploitation of human beings and oppression of human beings. Now, if I thought that we were wrong at any time, I would not have stayed and put my life on the line. I believe that today. I believe that even though it doesn't look like this can be done, I think that there's always hope. Because the other opportunity, or the other option rather, is that we can all kill each other. It's not complicated. And I believe we will all vote for life over death, ultimately. Even if we don't want to, we'll do it because we're forced to. One of the things that Huey talked about was the technology question and how the industrial base was withering away and being replaced by technology. And his theory was that technology had afforded the United States an opportunity to, in fact, become an empire. It had all the guns, and still does. So we look at today, and we look at Spain and France and all the European countries. Here is this idiot named Donald Trump as the president of the United States, king of the world, empire of the emperor, emperor of the world, who says the Iranians are their enemy and they can't have nuclear weapons. And anybody who trades with them is going to have to deal with me. I haven't heard one person say, you know what, Donald Trump, I'm going to trade with whoever I want to trade with. Everybody started shuffling around. The president of France running over there, French kissing Donald Trump. It's embarrassing because people say to me, how do the Americans end up getting Donald Trump for president? Well, I don't see anybody challenging Donald Trump anywhere else in the world, as idiotic as he may be. So what we have is a world that is essentially controlled by the United States of America. Jean Genet once said that France was a colony of the United States. And what he meant was the French will do whatever the United States tells them to do. we can all remember when there was a thing called the franc. Remember that? And the Deutschmark. And what was it here? The
Peseta.
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 Yes. And now we have the euro, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to put their little pictures on their little money and tell the world, I'm independent, I have my own national sovereignty, I've got our coin, our money, our exchange, and all of a sudden everybody collapsed and started talking about the euro. And the euro became a little more powerful than the intrinsically worthless dollar. The dollar is worth as much as this piece of tissue in my hand. But everybody bought into the dollar and got rid of the gold standard. Now, how did that happen? The whole world is agreeing that the dollar is the standard. I think it's incredible. And so Huey's point was that if the corporations of America begin to control the economies of the world, you know, there used to be a theme that Coca-Cola had, and they said, I'd love to buy the world a Coke. They had a song, I'd love to buy the world a Coke. And Huey said, and we said, no, you'd love to sell the world a Coke. And the difference is that I do sell the world a Coke. Every single country in the world has Coca-Cola. And it's not in competition with any of the little local drinks or whatever. No, it's Coca-Cola. Now, why is that important? Because in order for me to sell the world a Coke, I have to tell the world that it needs a Coke. Everybody can't hear me. They don't have TVs. They don't have infrastructure. So I have to build up a technological capacity for communication. Now we have Facebook. Now we have Twitter. And so the world knows they need a Coke. And the world doesn't know anything else. These are U.S. companies based in Silicon Valley, where I live, in Northern California. And they are in control of massive, massive systems of communication. Apple, #1 company in the world. In the world, Apple. I mean, I don't know what Google is. That's, you know, I call it Google is God. You know, Google, it's like Google God. You need something, you need to know something, contact Google. And so the world has been brought closer together through communications, other kinds of technology. And that's all essentially controlled by American corporations and America itself. Now
more than ever.
Pardon?
More than ever.
And that's the good news, because in the traditional Marxist-Leninist ideal, nations would become socialist states. They would overthrow the oppressor, the proletariat would rule, and eventually we would have the distribution of wealth according to the ability, and then distributed to ability, and according to ability and need. That's the traditional Marxist-Leninist thing. And how long was that going to take? We have all kinds of countries that fought for national sovereignty, especially looking at Africa, where of the 23 poorest countries in the world, 19 are in sub-Saharan Africa, where they have more diamonds than the whole planet, and yet they have no control over their economies. But the technology that has brought us together has created the potential for what Lenin called the negation of the negation. In other words, we can all talk to each other in seconds right now. Yeah. I can call everyone in the world that has an iPhone or anything resembling an iPhone. Yeah. And we know that we've had communications and we can do things with each other. And if we recognize that we have a common theme, then we might be able to find a way to have a common purpose, and eventually address that one great behemoth of an entity called the United States. So I do believe...
But you see any revolution breathing within this common technological community?
I don't know if I see it now. At this moment in time, I see pockets of things happening. People have goodwill. They want to do something. The Women's March.
We will talk about this now.
Black Lives Matter. You know, there are little signs that people want to do something.
But they don't know how to do it.
Well, they're not willing to make the sacrifice to do it, perhaps.
Let's talk about this sacrifice. You've talked about the 8th March feminism now in 2018, Black Lives Matter. Let's talk about it as well. Feminism. Tell us about, there's a point in the book in which you discuss within the party, you discussed about the goals, and you said, you know, anti-capitalism and racism are priorities, are very important. Feminism as well, but now our fight is for, the goal is to change the system, and we will afterwards see if we can arrange what we have in the gender agenda. Now, how do you see this? Because there's views which are quite critical with feminism in your book.
Well, that's because bourgeois white women have adopted the term feminism to pretend that that has something to do with the liberation of women.
Mm-hmm.
We always supported the liberation of women, just like the liberation of gay people or the liberation of the native people or anybody else who's oppressed. But to say that reproductive rights has something to do with women being free per se, this is, I have a choice over my body and all of this sort of thing. These are the luxuries of the first world and white women in the first world. Most of the black women, as a matter of fact, black women in the world are the poorest people in the world. Nobody's speaking about the question of the poor women with children. We had a bill passed, legislation passed by Bill Clinton that criminalized poor women for having babies out of wedlock, and so therefore they had no access to the government funding of children's food and so forth and so on. Not one feminist group then or now has said a mumbling word about the welfare reform bill. And all those women around the United States that marched never said anything about how poor women who have children, who are living by themselves, should be subsidized or supported. They never said a mumbling word. They want to talk about abortion as though that's the key thing. People who are Catholic, not interested in abortion, so now we just write them off. But the real issue is there's no class analysis in the so-called feminist movement, not since Gloria Steinem declared she was some sort of a feminist, or Betty Friedan, or whatever these people's names are. They were part of the so-called first wave of feminism. They have nothing to do with poor women. As a matter of fact, when the woman who was Roe v. Wade, Roe versus Wade, that great piece of Supreme Court decision, that great decision, in Roe v. Wade, the woman who was Roe at one point came out and said she could not support third trimester abortion as abortion. She would denounce it. And all the feminists in America that had a voice, Emily's List and whoever else they were, they denounced her. They denounced this woman because she said she considered it to be untenable that we could call this abortion at the third trimester of pregnancy. Now, this is all white women talking because black people don't have this conversation. We're not into reproductive rights as our primary issue. We don't have the time for that conversation. And then there's Betty Sanger, is it Betty Sanger, whatever his name, Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood. Margaret Sanger was a eugenicist. She created a clinic in Harlem, her first clinic, that was there to give abortion to black women. And so there's a whole class attitude that has been always a part of the so-called feminist movement. And so if we don't want to have a class analysis and understand poverty and poor women and want to talk about reproductive right and controlling our vaginas, when you have people living on $1 a day trying to take care of their children in sub-Saharan Africa, then we have a wrong agenda. I'm not interested in breaking through the glass ceiling and become a partner with some corporate monster so that I can oppress other women. I'm not trying to become a general in the Army of the United States so I can go kill some people in Afghanistan and have equal power with some man to kill other people in another country. We have to have an agenda that for women that is humane, and it goes to a class analysis and the question of economics. And so when we have a little march yesterday at the Cannes Film Festival led by Kate Blanchett, arguing that the women in Hollywood want equal pay as more directors wearing $40,000, $50,000 dresses, as though this is a feminist movement. This is Me Too. Stop. Oprah Winfrey, Me Too. Where's Oprah when all those women in South Side, West Side Chicago, where she has lived all her life and has done nothing for them? So I'm not interested in that. And so the question of how we deal with all of these things can only come through the shift of a paradigm, and that is the end of an exploitative system, because we will continue to eat away at little teeny things and think we're doing something. And so for me, I am a woman. I am black and a woman and poor, essentially poor. I have food, clothing. I have the basics. Any minute that could shift, but for now I have it. I can't tell myself, well, I'm more oppressed as a woman, and I'm supposed to now be a friend of white women because I should now see black men the same way they see white men. You don't get into that conversation with me about black men, because we were equal for 250 years in America as slaves. Nobody distinguished any gender issue during 250 years of slavery. We were never the owners of anything. Our men didn't own and control you and your men. You and your man controlled me and mine. We have a big issue to talk about here, and it's a class question as well as a race question. So I can't split myself up, but I will say this. When somebody asks me, well, is it worse to be a woman, to be poor, or to be black? I say, you ask that because you've never been hungry, because the first thing I'm going to be thinking about is I'm not going to be worried about the glass ceiling when I'm looking for some food for today. I'm not going to worry about the question of am I black or am I white, and do I have my identity, my LGBT identity, and all of my identity issues when I am hungry and living on the street. So we know that there are certain things that are common to us as human beings that we need, and those are the things that we said we would focus on. And that embraces really everyone who is without the things that we need to live. How are we doing?
Ara es preocupa pel temps. No, they will. Laura will come here and make but we
Give
are
us
fine. What time is it now? Quina hora? Ja? Que m'has fet un gest. És que hem pactat que em faria un gest i no l'he vist.
What?
Jo sóc una mica yonqui de l'entrevista. That we should go to the questions, because I've asked so many questions. So you can put this on and they will ask you questions. Per favor, us demanaré un favor.
Is it working?
Yes, I think it's working. Hang on. Un favor que us demanaré és, you should put that on.
Oh, yeah, another
I
thing.
know
huh?
you don't like that, but.
Oh, I hear myself.
What do you hear?
Myself.
Yourself?
I hear you. Yeah.
Me? In Catalan? Sí, ara parlo en català i em tradueix.
I hear you, Maria.
Perfecte.
Thank you.
Okay.
Aleshores,
si us plau, feu preguntes curtes i si us plau no feu discursos, perquè crec que és una tentació en algun moment, perquè diu coses molt interessants i un té ganes d'entrar, saps? Però sou moltíssims i llavors que pugueu respondre i puguem fer la mitja hora de preguntes. Per tant, per on comencem? On està el micro?
And I'll try to be brief.
Aquí. Vale. Alguna pregunta? Allà, una.
Hola, muchísimas
Hola.
gracias por estar aquí. Es un privilegio compartir un rato contigo. Y mi pregunta es como un análisis, ¿no? De que han puesto una señora de negra en el público y hacerle preguntas sobre su lucha y todo lo que está haciendo. Y mientras los que están aquí, las negras, las latinas, todos los inmigrantes que están aquí luchando, y la izquierda de Europa, o de España, concreto, en España, en Cataluña, no le incluye en su lucha. Es como, por ejemplo, ¿cómo lo puedo llamar? Es hipocresía o es vamos a buscar fuera otro, por ejemplo, porque los que están aquí no pueden llevar esa lucha que están haciendo, porque hay bastantes negras muy potentes que están en Cataluña, pero los catalanes, la izquierda blanca realmente no le incluyen su lucha. Y le está haciendo que pase un análisis o un comentario sobre eso, como ella lo ve como una americana que viene desde aquí.
Well, if I understand your question, I would like to first say I'm not an American, so don't call me an American. I'll forgive you because you're a brother, okay? I don't salute that flag. As I mentioned to people earlier today, I'm an African without a country. And that's all right because I have a people lost within the country. I think today that I have learned many things about Spain. I already knew a lot of things about Spain because it's a colonial power that has oppressed people of color for hundreds of years and built up the Spanish country through the blood of the people that have been oppressed. But Spain, but here within the current scheme of things, you do have a situation that I've been made aware of where you have some African immigrants here who are attempting to survive. And they are looking to Spain because they have arrived on these shores to try and settle. They're not asking for a lot, apparently, of people making their own way, but they have been declared illegal or illegitimate or whatever the term is. Now, this coming from the Spanish government is pretty funny, given that, as I also learned having come here, that the Spanish government supports a foundation in Franco's name. That's a little bizarre to me, among other things. And so I want to certainly bring out the fact that there are African people here who are attempting to find a way to stay here through a certain amount of paperwork or what have you. And it would certainly be important that the people who are here of goodwill, who are progressive, left, whatever, that they put that as in their agenda because it's easy to see. And that agenda is important because it means the survival of the people who are here, who have landed on these shores. And remembering that when the Spanish, I have to back up a minute. When I went to the city hall here in Barcelona and I saw that big oil painting of Queen Isabella, I said, oh no, not Queen Isabella in 2018. This is a little embarrassing and disgraceful for you to still have this picture in your city hall. And so you have to be self-critical. Of course, that's just a symbol, Queen Isabella. And so I would invite tomorrow, nobody told me where, so I hope someone who's listening right now will tell me where. I'm going to be out there at 10 o'clock in the morning somewhere, don't know where, to support the efforts of the mostly Senegalese immigrant population trying to get paperwork. And I will hope that everyone here who is serious, that has a minute of a day to spend, that would march 100,000 strong for the independence of Catalan would also be willing to spend a little time to march for the support of the Senegalese immigrants. We don't know where. We got to find out. Thank you.
Més preguntes. Aquí. On està el micro? Porteu el micro allà?
Hi, I was born here in Spain, in Barcelona, and it's an amazing pleasure to meet you and to see you today here. I was just...
She's speaking in English, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I'm like, wait, where's the translation? Excuse me.
Out of respect to you, and also because I don't want my question to to be misread. You said that the strategies all depend on the conditions. And as you can see here, black people and also black people who were born here, we are a minority. And when it comes down to fight racism, serious fighting racism, we are left to our own devices. And sometimes we think that we actually need a Black Panther Party to be able to fight for, because we are actually left on our own. What would you tell the Spanish black community? How can we, in this post-racial, what they call post-racial society, can we fight against the invisible racism and very visible and very aggressive that we fight every day? What would you be your message to the black community in Spain?
Well, I think the first thing is, what do you want? Do you want to just blend into this?
No, I want to fight the racism that we found here every day.
Well,
this is
what
what
I'm
I
saying,
want.
okay, but what I'm saying is, what do you want to gain when you say fighting racism? Racism usually means some sort of discrimination or some sort of other thing, and it means that if you can be embraced in the society, you'll be all right. The Black Panther Party never saw our freedom as connected to belonging to a society that was already exploitative. And so I say that to say, when you say you want to fight racism, what does it translate to? Does it mean that, like the women's movement, I just want to break through the glass ceiling. I want to be treated equally. Black lives matter. I want white people to know that black lives matter. None of this is my concern at all. So if you ask me what I think that the question would be, what if you want freedom, self-determination in this country, what are the steps that you have to take? And you have to know that you can't keep the current government as it is. This has to go. So you have to find ways to make that happen. I always recommend right now that there needs to be a resurrection of some sort of Black Panther Party, but we were not nationalists. We were not trying to create a black nation. We were trying to create a space where black people would be free in the United States of America. So I would say that if you are just angry because white people don't like you or mistreat you, that's one question. But my question is, what is the larger goal? I was asking some of my brothers that I met earlier today from Senegal, what's going to happen to the people of Senegal? Do we have a larger view of ourselves in terms of a diaspora? Do we have a larger view of other poor people? How are we connected to that? So our analysis has to be, what do you want? Do you want freedom? And what does freedom mean? For us, it meant self-determination, power to determine the destiny of our people. And if that's what you want, you probably will have to form something like a Black Panther Party. But you can't form the party based on the hatred of and the rage that you may have and do have with white people. It has to come from the place of love. Che Guevara said, and we quote it all the time, that a true revolutionary is guided by great feelings of love. So you have to come from a place of love of black people, whether they are here or wherever, and create the conditions for you to get the things that you want. But you have to know what you want. I don't care anything about belonging to the people of the United States. I am not a citizen of the United States except for legal purposes of getting back and forth to Spain. I need to have a passport. I don't salute the flag. It's not my country. I don't have anything to do with it. I've been there 400 and some years, so I don't have a thing to do with what these people do on a day-to-day basis. But how do I change that so that it serves my interests? So the question is, how do you make the kind of change that serves the interests of the blacks that you are concerned with and your own people? And for me, there is only one answer, and that's fundamental change. You're not going to change the hearts and minds of anybody suddenly like you. That's one of the problems I have with the Black Lives Matter movement, is that it's like, oh, we want white people to understand that my life is significant. I don't care if you understand it or not, but if you don't understand it, you're going to have a problem. So the question is, if you're ready to get down and you're ready to die for it, we can always talk about resurrecting the Black Panther Party, but if you want to do it in this conversation, it's not going to happen because everybody here is not going to care about what your issues are. You have to care enough to be willing to die to make that change. And yes, I would absolutely recommend that you could create something like the Black Panther Party here in Spain.
Més preguntes. És que no us veig. A veure on... Aquí. Hi ha micro aquí? Ara venen. I allà darrere després. Vinga.
M'agradaria que parlés de lo que està fent ara.
No et sentim. A veure?
I ara?
Ara millor.
Potser seria interessant saber què està fent ara. Té una fundació...
Què està fent?
Què està fent? Què és la seva fundació?
Well, first of all, as I like to say, I'm still standing at 75 years old. I don't have to do another thing as far as I'm concerned.
You are leaving.
I don't owe any more of anything, but I'm still going to work until I drop dead. And what I'm doing now is I'm working in Oakland, California, and we have created an organization. Technically, it's a non-profit, which means we don't make any profit from our efforts, but we have to have money. And our effort is to create businesses for ownership by formerly incarcerated people, cooperative ownership, and to sustain the businesses until they are profitable for those people. Why? Because if you've been in prison in the U.S., and a lot of people in the United States have been in prison, especially black people, you will not be able to survive another day after prison because you cannot get a job if you are formerly incarcerated, and you cannot even get housing if you're formerly incarcerated. So you really are just ready to do whatever you have to do to survive and probably end up back in prison. So that's just the smallest part of it, but the bottom line is to create it. So we've been able to acquire a 3/4 acre, I don't know what that is in...
3/4?
I don't know, 3/4 acre property.
Sí, té una...
A pretty big property within a city block. It's in the city.
No és una hectàrea, és a 3/4 d'una hectàrea, ha aconseguit un edifici...
I don't know what acres are in
acres.
Okay,
No sé
but you get it. So it's a pretty big property. And we decided that we would launch several businesses, and one of them would be an urban farm, and one of them would be a tech design center, and one of them would be a fitness center. And so right now we've been able to acquire this property, and we are building also some housing on it, and will be 100% affordable housing. And for people who are coming out of prison or people who can't normally afford to live anywhere. And we've been able to find a lot of money. It's a long story, but the bottom line is if you look up our website, if I can do a little cheap advertising, Oakland and the World Enterprises, and you can look it up, Oakland and the World. And you'll see that we have established a farm, and we have 10 farmers there who are the owners, but we subsidize them with $20 an hour payment. And all of them are formerly incarcerated, 50%, 5 women, 5 men. And they are cultivating, vegetables that are organically grown. we're not making any real money from it, but we have the paradigm, we have the framework for how to begin to talk about how we can get out of the morass of poverty in the absence of a mass movement that would challenge the system itself. So that's where we are now.
Si li seguiu la trajectòria veureu que una de les coses que més l'ha amoïnat tant quan estava dins del partit com fora és què passa amb els presos, perquè la meitat de la població reclusa és negra, un 13%, ella sempre ens recorda que un 13% de la població als Estats Units és negra i en canvi la meitat de la població reclusa ho és. I aleshores ella sempre s'amoïna per què passa amb els presos i les preses quan surten de la presó, la majoria no tenen possibilitat per als antecedents penals d'incorporar-se, de la reinserció, i en aquest terreny és on ha treballat i on treballa més. Més preguntes? Allà baix. Tens micro a prop? Ara te'l porten. Tingueu en compte que el llibre va fins que ella surt, fins que ella abandona el partit, tota la part dels darrers anys, però és apassionant, jo us ho recomano molt. Digues.
Elaine, aquí, bueno, parlaré en català. Aquí a Europa estem en un procés per jutjar pels crims de les fronteres al Tribunal Permanent dels Pobles, que és una iniciativa de les organitzacions de migrants, i jutgem per les necropolítiques o també pels espais de no dret. I aviat a Barcelona tindrem una audiència del tribunal i el volia demanar si penses que als Estats Units, amb la política actual del president Trump, que és realment de violació dels drets humans a les fronteres i d'expulsió, etc., que es podria iniciar una iniciativa similar.
Okay. I'm not sure about... Hold on.
She's saying that we are really worried for what is happening here in Europe, in our south frontiers, Italy, Greece, Spain, the south of Spain, people coming from Syria's war and Morocco, etc. They are dying in the sea because we are not helping them, right? And we are trying different initiatives to avoid these people from dying in the water. And one of these initiatives would be to have a center in which we could analyze what's happening, because we are dealing with a European Union which is not helping. What do you think of Trump's immigration policies, which are exactly the same with the South in Mexico as well? And if you think it could be comparable or a strategy that in the United States could improve?
Perdona, sorry, so I just would translate myself. This is an initiative like a people's sovereignty initiative. It's a permanent people's tribunal to judge for border crimes. And this is happening in Europe, and that's an initiative of people, no? So my question was, and we are judging for spaces without rights and also for necropolitics. So my question was, if you think that's an initiative that in the US could also happen, this type of people's initiative to judge the crimes that is happening in the borders in this context.
I'm not following. I'm so sorry.
I think she's saying that they want to improve here an initiative to be able to judge, jutjar els responsables dels crims de fronteres. Vale. She's saying that if you would approve that Trump would, or in the United States, would be an initiative to be judging permanently people who is killing or facilitating the killing, the massive killing of people who is trying to get into our countries through the frontiers. Like if it was a permanent tribunal for these sort of crimes in international terms.
A permanent tribunal to do what? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No. I'm not explaining right. A permanent tribunal, as far as in the war, we have a tribunal to judge the crimes for one war, to have a permanent one because of people who is dying because United States, European
countries... To hold
countries...
people responsible for... Are you saying to hold people responsible for...
To be able to prosecute politicians who really facilitate at the end that people is killed because of the immigration policies.
Sorry, we have that tribunal. It's a people's tribunal, a permanent people's tribunal, like the Russell Tribunal, the judge
A
for the
people's
war
tribunal.
crimes.
Are you
Yes.
saying, wait.
We have this initiative here in Europe. It's a people's initiative now. It's happening soon in Barcelona, judging for border crimes. So, yeah, my question is, do you think that that would be something that the people in the United States could also work on in order to judge?
No. I don't. The people of the United States, in the majority, have supported Donald Trump's immigration policies. But even if we were to say yes and say, okay, we're going to prosecute, how are you going to enforce all of that? So we have to be practical. That's why I asked the young woman about what do you want to achieve? Because it can't be just an abstraction and a rage and an idea. It has to be concrete. So we've had many people's tribunals about police who've killed people in America. Now, what are you going to do? Put them in the jail that you have? You don't have a jail. You follow me? What is the enforcement for that? Because if it existed, then we could be changing a lot of things right now. But we don't have the power. We can have an organized effort. It can educate people about the problem. But is it going to really address the problem by saying, we find you guilty, Mr. Who, whatever your name is, for having done the things that you've done to these people? We're not in a position to enforce that. When we get to that place, you're going to have a revolutionary organization like the Black Panther Party that is going to be a mass organization. Right now, we don't even have a government here in Barcelona. You don't have a government. So what is the enforcement ability? What is your real ability? We can say everything we want to say, denounce who you want to denounce. Are you willing to get down and die for it? You willing to die for the independence of Catalan? Because if you're not willing to die for it, it's just a conversation right now. You understand what I'm saying? So if you're asking me if there's a people's tribunal to address the crimes that people have committed against the immigrant populations here and there, I'm saying, no, it's not going to be done in America, and I don't know how you're going to do it here when you can't even get a government together because nobody's willing to make that last thrust where you're ready to die for something and not just talk about it. So if you're willing to die for it, then let's talk about who's going to get punished, but I don't know how you're going to punish them. So for me, if I understand what you've said, I don't see how that would be possible in America or in the United States, much less anywhere else in the Western world where all these violations occur. The other thing, though, is this. When I look at places in Africa, I look at, for example, not the poorest country, because the poorest country in Africa, the only country in Africa that's even in the world economic conversation is what? South Africa, right? And South Africa has all the diamonds and gold and so many other African countries. Who is running the diamonds and gold? You think the black people, after Mandela and all that they fought for, in the majority, where are they now in terms of their own economy and their own economic? Where are they, Mr. Brother from Senegal? Where are the people from South Africa? So all the tribunals they had where they denounced Winnie Mandela and had all of that reconciliation, remember that? Where has it gone in the world right now? South Africa is still a racist society. Still, the money is still held in the same hands of the same Oppenheimers and others that controlled the diamond mines when they put Nelson Mandela in prison. And we've gone through all of that, and nothing has actually changed. So we have to have practical measures. I don't know what your ultimate goal would be. Is it to get justice, extract justice, or to get these people some relief? What is the goal? But I don't think you're going to get a buy-in, if you will, meaning people will support the idea of having an actual tribunal where people will be found guilty and then punished for their crimes, because punishment would be the goal for me. It still wouldn't resolve the problem of the immigrant who has nothing, but you might be punishing the wrongdoer. I don't know how you're going to effect that kind of punishment. Doesn't mean that we don't want to be upset about it or we don't want to do something, but that particular thing is not something I see that would be acceptable or would be carried out in any meaningful way in the United States or really anywhere else. Sorry to say that.
Jo sento que no t'he traduït bé abans. Una última pregunta que em diuen que hem d'acabar ja. Aquí n'hi ha una al davant, a veure si...
Hola, sí.
Una pregunta m'has dit que sí, no?
Sí, jo. Elaine, bé, moltes gràcies, un plaer escoltar-te. Volia dir-te una cosa important. És una pregunta de futur. A veure, m'agradaria saber com es pot ser revolucionària i no morir en l'intent. És a dir, la idea és que aquí a Espanya, l'any 36, vam tenir una revolució que va ser anticapitalista, va ser una revolució llibertària, va transformar la societat plenament. Vam tenir després una guerra civil, ha continuat un govern autoritari, autòcrata, després d'aquesta guerra civil, amb una dictadura que dura fins avui, i així estem avui. És a dir, tots aquells revolucionaris els van matar a la guerra, es van haver d'exiliar i van morir en l'intent. Com podem fer tots? Perquè nosaltres volem canviar aquesta societat, som anticapitalistes, ens volem transformar en una societat més igualitària, volem construir un món millor, però no volem morir en l'intent de construir-lo, el volem construir. Com veus tu que podem fer-ho?
Well, you know, I knew a young man named Jonathan Jackson, who was the brother of George Jackson, who was the field marshal of the Black Panther Party. And Jonathan was 17 years old when he picked up a gun and went into a courthouse in Marin County, California, in the northern part of California, and demanded taking hostage the judge, jury, and the district attorney, the prosecutor, and demanded that they free his brother and two others at a certain time in the day. And by the time he got to the door with the jury and the judge and all, he was killed. I'd rather see Jonathan alive today than not. So I believe in living to fight another day. But there's a moment in your life when if you're not willing to die for something, as Dr. King said, and anybody else will tell you, then you probably don't really have much of an agenda in the first place. You're not going to have a comfortable revolution. You have a country that was a fascist country for a very long time. And the only thing that happened is, Franco died or something. So, you know, to think that you can actually address monsters, people who have killed people, people who will kill people, people who will kill people in the ocean that she's talking about, people that don't care if you're hungry and go and drop dead tonight. If you think you're going to address this kind of monster with some kind of persuasion, you have to deliver a consequence. Now, you not only have to be ready to die, you probably have to be ready to kill. Now, that's where people get nervous. I don't want to do that. I had a young lady come to me and said she wanted to have a program of restorative justice for rape. I'm like, you want to have restorative justice for rape. Now, how's that going to work? You're going to get 4 or 5 guys that raped this woman to come into a room and have a dialogue about why rape is wrong. What is it that you think is going to happen, seriously? Are you willing to get out here and tell these men that the next person that you think about raping, something bad is going to happen to you? Now, what is that something bad? Some people don't understand anything but violence. They're not going to stop. So to think that you can somehow change the minds of people by persuasion, I don't get it. We love Dr. King. He was a believer in nonviolence, but everybody around Dr. King was strapped, just so you know, meaning they all had guns. He wasn't walking through life like somebody insane dealing with the people in the South that he was dealing with. But he used nonviolence as a tactic. But there was a moment when he dropped that tactic because he said, look, how can I ask these people to be nonviolent when this country will send them to go kill somebody somewhere else in a war? You're not even opposing Trump's attack on Iran. And Trump doesn't care about what you think here. You better start delivering some consequences. I don't have the answer to that. But if you are not willing to die, I don't see how you can fight at a level that's going to make any kind of change. This is what I believe and what my observation is. Now, one of my other observations is that people, as I drove around Barcelona, I looked at how really well people are living, generally speaking. I was out at the beach today, or the port. It was stunning, just stunning. I could have stayed there and foregone this. I wouldn't have to go here. I'd just stay out there at the beach all day. So I say that to say that's going to be very hard to give all that up and fight for something in a meaningful way. You follow me? So we have to make a decision. And for me, I don't know how you can make a decision to make any real changes where you're dealing with people who are monsters, who will kill everybody in your bed, who will bomb Afghanistan into oblivion, right? I don't see any big protests about Afghanistan right now. People just dying every day in Afghanistan. Iraq war, I mean, we've been waging war in Iraq forever. We're not even talking about the question of Palestine, are we? Oh, that's right, we can't even call it Palestine anymore, can we? So we have all of these people who are ruthless, who will kill people every day. And you think that you're going to make a change in those people without being willing to die for it? I don't see how it's possible. I really don't. I'm sorry. Should we do any? Are we taking any more?
Thank you very much. Now we do.
Finish.
Now it's 9 o'clock. He d'acabar, oi? It's finished. It's fine.
I want to say something. I want to say that I want to thank everyone for this amount of attention. It's an incredibly intelligent crowd of people and people that I've met here. In the United States, people are so uninformed, it's impossible for me to explain to you the level of ignorance there is in the United States. There's so much information here. I've had so many good conversations since I've been here. People really asking questions, really sitting, this many people sitting just on a dialogue about ideas. I can't imagine this too many places, matter of fact, any places in the United States. We are distracted by bright and shiny things, whether or not Kanye West said something or, you know, all the other dumb things that Americans are distracted by, music videos and Twitter posts and Facebook messages about their irrelevant experiences the day before, you know. So
they do that here as well.
I'm sure.
Don't get too optimistic about it.
I'm not romanticizing it. I'm just telling you my experience is that I have had more intelligent conversations here in the last 3 or 4 days than probably in the last year or so in the United States. So I want to thank you for being interested in what I had to say. Thank you. Can I take this off? Okay. All right.
Que vagi bé. Felicitats a Literal per aquesta iniciativa. Gràcies per convidar-nos.